the recording, and I'm just saying, everybody in the tribe got to pick who they wanted to host, and there was some people who brought people to the table. She brought you to the table. I was not as familiar. I've heard of you. I was not as familiar, and I thought the cavalcade was a perfect time for us to expand beyond our normal reach and to hear from some voices that I might not be familiar with. The tribe reads other things and other material. So now I have, a TBR that has some Tyora, because I love those covers. And I just thought it was awesome. But I just want to let you know, J.L. Campbell advocated and said, we need to get her. And that's how you came in to that. So I'm going to turn this over to my sister in the pen, all the way from Jamaica, man, to that oxtail recipe that's in that next cookbook, man. Yeah.
Good afternoon, Miss Moody. It is such a pleasure. Such a pleasure. Now, I'm just going to say a little bit about you and then we segue into our conversation. So, for those who don't know, Ms. Tyora Moody is an award-winning author, and she's a literary entrepreneur. And that's kind of how I became aware of her some time ago. But we'll talk more about that. She writes cozy mystery, women sleuths, and romantic suspense under the banner of Christian fiction. She provides a variety of services to writers and has published 10 authors and several anthologies. So we're gonna go in several directions, but the covers, they are calling me. They're calling me. So perhaps we should start with you telling us about that series.
Yes, and thank you for having me. I appreciate the opportunity. Yeah, so this is the Eugenia Patterson Mysteries behind me. This is my cozy mystery series. The main character is Eugenia Patterson. She's a retired school teacher, grandmother, and she's an amateur sleuth. So it starts off with Deep Fried Trouble, and I just recently released the fourth book, A Simmering Dilemma. And people just love this yellow cover. When I started off with the yellow cover, it would attract attention when I was out and about. So I said, I'm just going to keep with this cover. And I always go to the kitchen because that's kind of her place. She loves to be. She loves to eat. So the titles usually they kind of come off of the fact that she likes to eat. She also has diabetes too, so I kind of deal with some of those issues in the book. So that's kind of where the titles come from.
Okay. How, how long has the series been going on, and how did the character come to you?
Yeah, the character actually came to me in 2008 when I was still trying to figure out what I wanted to do. I've always been a reader. I mainly do read mystery and suspense. So, me writing was something new to me, but this character kind of was born from people I hung around. I hang around my mom. I hang around a lot of women from church who are in this baby boomers age. They're over 50 and 60, and they kind of have a way about them. They have a little bit of sass to them, and they don't really care because they're at this age and they've seen things, they know things. So that's where the character was born back in 2008. But she wasn't officially published until 2013 with Deep Fried Trouble.
Okay. The Literary Entrepreneur's Toolkit. That is how I first became aware of you and what you do. And let me tell you, every author needs to pick up that book because it is chock full of all the information that you need on this journey from writer to published author. Um, just a little about your literary journey. How did you come to writing, or how did writing come to you, and how did you move into helping other writers to become authors?
Yeah, so I'm a little bit backwards. I've always been a reader, but I've been working with authors over 20 years. So I started my business, the side business, Tie Webbing Creations, with an author. I was doing websites as a hobby. And this author saw what I was doing, and she said, "Do you get paid to do this?" And I was like, "No, but if you need someone to help you with the website, I'll be willing to help you. And so that's how I got started. So I did websites for like a decade for authors. And then somewhere in there, I started to realize there wasn't a lot of people of color in the mysteries and suspense that I wrote. So that kind of drove me. I wanted to experience with a person of color who was an amateur sleuth because it wasn't something I've ever seen before. And then I also have this umbrella of I wanted to write under Christian fiction. So it was a lot of genres to work with. Like I said, it took me a while to get the first book done, but I actually have been helping authors a long time. After I started getting more into independent publishing, and just so you know, the books behind me, those are all self-published. I became more confident that I could help other authors. So I kind of flipped the script on what I do. I don't do websites anymore, but I definitely help with doing graphic design work with book covers, formatting, and then I help authors work with editors to make sure their books are quality edited before they actually go to publication.
In doing all of that, where exactly do you carve out the time to do your own writing?
That's a good question. Being a night owl, the weekends, a long time ago, I decided, even though I have a day job too, just so you know. Um, Even though I have my side businesses, the weekends are mine. So I let my clients know Monday through Thursday is when I do my work. By Friday, I'm kind of planning for the next week. And Friday through Sunday is all about marketing, getting time to write the next book. So I'm shoving in a lot of things in between trying to keep the house clean. So there's a lot of things going on. So I just tell people write when you can. Sometimes you might have to get some audio and record some things, but you try to get the words down on paper as best you can. And I tell authors, try to learn the art of writing clean. So I do go back and rewrite um, chapters as I go. So by the time I send it off to the editor, I feel like that's a fairly clean book that the editor can work with. And then I'm off to the next project. So I'm never bored. Always working on something.
Let me ask you one more question before I give the tribe a chance to throw their questions at you as well. How I know the business of self-publishing has changed over the years. How has that affected what you do, both in terms of what you do for yourself and what you do for other authors?
Yeah, just so you know, I started off traditionally published, so I'm a bit of a hybrid author too. But there was some things about being traditionally published that I found out real quick didn't work for me, at least at the time. That was deadlines. Um, Trying to work to a deadline started to put a lot of pressure that I kind of didn't feel like I could deal with at the time. So I enjoy the fact that I can make my own goal, like say this time next year, I like to have out this book, and this short story. And I kind of work my way through that. So definitely with self-publishing, I love that aspect. And then I enjoy the fact that I have kind of free range with my covers. They are something that I personally work with an illustrator. I research the photos. So I love that part of doing all that myself. And I try to instill with other authors who I work with, you know, this is your baby. Um, Take the time to really work with the editor, listen to them, go through the edits, don't rush through it. Make a release date that's far out enough so you have time to market it. Don't like put it out there and then you're disappointed because no one has seen it. It's because you haven't had the time to tell people about it. So those are things I try to teach people, and I try to do myself as well.
So does anybody else have a question?
Hey Ty, how are you?
Hi, how are you? And thank you for having me again. This has been so wonderful.
I'm so excited. I've known you forever, and you actually did one or two of my covers, and yes, you rock all the
Oh,
way around. So one of the questions I have is, are your characters entirely fiction, or are you pulling sometimes based on some real life people that you know?
um, that's a good question. I would say with the Eugenia character, some of that are things that I've learned or seen, observed from older women around me. But she's pretty much she's an original in her own. Like I don't know anybody who runs across as many dead bodies as she does. But yeah, I do definitely observe older women. I pay attention to what happens in the baby boomer range. What are some of the things they deal with after retirement? So yeah, I do pull from real life from those aspects.
There's a question in the chat that says, do you have any advice for writing cozy mysteries?
Yes. So I write several kinds of cozy mysteries, and for anyone who's curious about why is it called cozy, usually a cozy mystery you don't see anything graphic, like you wouldn't totally describe the murder scene. There's not a lot of violence going on, and sometimes you have a main character like a Miss Eugenia, who is the amateur sleuth. There's usually always an amateur sleuth, and you may pair the amateur sleuth with a detective. Like in my series, Miss Eugenia happens to be married to a retired homicide detective, and then you also see the recurring detective in the story show up. So there are things that Miss Eugenia would not know other than what she saw on television during a a crime show that she watches. But a more professional detective will come aboard and kind of correct her and let her know what the deal is. Some other type of mysteries, if you're interested in, I also write police procedurals. Those may have a detective as the main character. So you actually walk through the police station, you go to the crime scene, you see things in detail. So those are also mysteries. And then I have another mystery where there's a woman sleuth. Um, and that's just mainly it's a private detective who is the one responsible for solving the crime. So the genre of mysteries can be split up into several different categories in itself. So cozy mysteries, find yourself an amateur sleuth. Oftentimes the setting is a big thing. Mine is set in Charleston, South Carolina, because I can drive down the road. I'm in South Carolina, so I can get to Charleston in an hour and a half and kind of check out things and put them in the book. But yeah, think about setting too. A lot of cozy mysteries have things like a coffee shop, a bookstore. So there's some kind of other element that you might see on the cover. Like I use a kitchen, but some cozies may have a dog, a cat, different aspects that make it cozy.
I'm looking at all of those and I am like getting hungry. So I'm just saying, I think that's awesome because I have now known of a Black author who wrote cozy mysteries. We get the romantic suspense, the hard, the dark stuff, but nice to have that. But what is your book, baby? What is the one that, if you didn't write anything else, I asked a couple of authors this, but I love to hear the response because the next question is going to differ, I think, from what I'm going to ask you right now. What is the one of the whole series that you're like, if I hadn't written anything else, this is the one?
Probably the first one, Deep Fried Trouble. I set out. You don't often see a romance with people over 50 or 60 in books. So I set out the very first chapter. You can tell Miss Eugenia likes her next door neighbor. So that's kind of been a unique aspect to the book and that you see throughout the book. So when people start with the first book in the series, um, that always tickles me to see their reactions. So that's definitely the baby of the group.
Okay. So if there was one of the books, and it doesn't have to necessarily be in order, what is one of the books that if I hadn't read anything by you, What is the one book is the best intro to you?
Oh wow. I guess I would say the most recent. Because the two are now married. And there's an interesting dynamic now that they're blended families. Um, so with me, it was a little bit of a challenge with writing about Amos because I hadn't really talked about his family in previous books. So I think it's a good introduction that you'll find realistic in your own family if you've ever had people marry for the second time and they have children and the other spouse has children, seeing those dynamics. I think this book is probably my strongest book out of the four, just because I'm really diving into the family dynamics with this book. And I think it's very relatable, even though there's a dead body in it. But
Ah, and how do cozy mysteries, for people who don't know, how do cozy mysteries differ from the murder mysteries that we're commonly used to? When you think of mystery and you say cozy mystery, that sounds cute and all, but what does it mean?
definitely, there's usually a main character. You could have a little bit of a sense of humor. Miss Eugenia is very sassy. She says exactly what's on her mind. There's a family element. There's a little bit of a women's fiction element to it because you really get to know her and her family throughout the series. And then the setting is she's in Sugar Creek neighborhood, so her neighbors are just as much a part of her life and helping solve the mystery as she is.
Mhm.
So yeah, there is some cutesy to it, I think, but it's usually a sense of humor to it. It's warm and cozy. There's nothing graphical about like one of my favorite authors to read is Karen Slaughter. If you ever read one of her books, she'll leave you kind of a little bit scared after you're reading a few of those chapters. That people really exist like this in the world? So I wouldn't go to that depth with a cozy mystery. You wouldn't see the person, the serial killer, or anything like that on in the chapters that would scare you. So
Mm-hmm. Okay. Any more questions from the tribe?
I have one. In terms of Christian fiction background, in your books, is there a blatant message? Is there a muted message? Is there in terms of God and Christianity and that sort of thing? How do you handle that?
it depends on the book. For Miss Eugenia, she's definitely a woman of faith. She's an usher in her church. When things get really chaotic for her, you're going to see her seek God in prayer. I feel like that's just a natural transition for her to do for her character in her age. She's a Southern woman, Southern African American woman. That's just what she's going to do. In some of my other books, I do have themes. My very first novel, When Rain Falls, that was published by Urban Christian back in 2012, I deal with grief. So throughout that book, the character is literally asking God why does he keep taking away the people she loves? So I go through different themes in different books. I've dealt with forgiveness, trying to forgive people. The first book in my Reed family series, Broken Heart, uh, the homicide detective is dealing with a case, and she knows her husband's cheated on her. So she's dealing with whether she should how does she handle things at home, and also how is she handling this case. So it just depends on the character, and faith is going to be a big part of what what's a part of their life, and I just depend on how the character drives it.
Any other tribe member have any questions for Ms. Moody? I'm unmuting some of the other people, so we'll just keep the background noise to a minimum.
I have something to say.
Hey, Pat.
Go ahead.
Okay, hi Ty.
Hey.
I don't really have that much of a question because I've known you for a long time, but I wanted to take the opportunity to thank you for all the videos and promotion, the promotion that you've done for me over the years, and how successful, part of my success is due to you, and how you would just step up to the game whenever I needed you. You were there. So I just wanted to try to know that I love you, I appreciate you, and how wonderfully talented you are.
Oh, thank you, Miss Pat. I'm always there in your corner when you need me. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Indeed. Indeed. Is there any parting words that you would like to give to people who are, because now it seems that you have different hats. You know, you do graphic design, you do promotion, you do a lot of cover design, you do all of these things. How do you, and you're, how do you juggle business, personal, writing life, and make it all work?
That is a good question. I always tell people I'm not superwoman. I take whatever, well, here's what I think. God sends you what you need to do at a certain moment. That's what you work on. The clients that come to me, I'm focused on what they need at that moment. And when it's time for me to work on my projects, like I said earlier, the weekends are mine. I do not try to do, I used to back in the day, 10 years ago, would work on client stuff late at night, Saturday, Sunday. I don't do that anymore. So I think you have to find balance. You have to literally in your calendar, like, this is my day. Saturday, Sunday, this is writing time. I'm not looking at emails. My clients know if you email me on Friday, you may not hear from me until Monday. I have that in my signature. So I think it's just a matter of finding balance, and using your time. You may not write 2,000 words in a night. You may only write 500 words. That's enough, to keep moving the word count forward until you get where you need to be.
So, really tough question here.
Uh-oh.
If you had to choose between, right, not really a tough question. You found your stride in this cozy mystery market. What have you been afraid to tackle that you say, you know what, if I wasn't really doing so well here, I'd like to write this instead?
That's a good question. So I hang out with a lot of authors. I notice a lot of them write romance, which is obviously the most popular genre. So I actually gave myself a challenge last year. I started with short stories. I said I want to see if I can write uh, at least a little bit of a story where it's no mystery to it. So I've actually have been challenging myself. So I've written 3 short stories that are just romance, man meets woman, and then we go from there. And they've done pretty well. So now I've been challenged from readers to go back and write a longer book, which I was going to be really challenging for me, but I'm determined to do it. Actually, that's one of my goals in 2021. Just write a straight romance, and put that out there and see how it goes. So, yeah, and lately I've been reading there's a lot of Black authors in the YA industry who write science fiction, fantasy books. Those are books I actually love to read. One of these days, I wouldn't mind tackling one of those, but I love to read them for now. But I'm open to whatever story drops in my spirit and to see where it goes.
Good, good. So Jay, I'm turning it back over to JL because she's going to close you out for our next guest. Hold on. She muted herself. There we go. There we go.
Thank you so much, Ms. Moody, for taking time out of your day to be with us. Can you tell us where we can find you on the internet?
Yes, you just look for my name, TyoraMoody.com. It's my website. And on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, just look for Tyora Moody. I use that consistently wherever I am online. And thank you guys for the opportunity again. I appreciate being here.
Indeed, indeed. Okay, okay. So are you gonna hang out around? I can put you in the backyard. You can watch some of the other stuff going on, and you can pop out and you can pop back in.
Backyard's fine, thank you.
Okay, so we're gonna do that right here. Thank you so much for coming.